Glass hit the marble floor before anyone moved. It shattered clean, the kind of sound that cuts through a room full of orchestrated laughter and champagne clinking and people performing wealth at each other. For exactly 2 seconds, no one said anything. Then the man in the navy suit straightened his cufflinks and turned back to his guests, and the broken glass on the floor became someone else's problem. That was the Hargrove way. It always had been. Serena Mack had driven 4 hours to get here. She hadn't told anyone she was coming. Not her assistant, not her attorney, not her best friend Penny, who would have told her this was a bad idea and then driven her there anyway. Serena had just gotten in the car at 7 in the morning with a thermos of black coffee and the kind of quiet focus that had made her the youngest portfolio director at Meridian Capital before she was 28. She was 31 now. The dress she wore tonight was navy blue, not because she was trying to match anything, but because it was the only formal thing in her garment bag that didn't need ironing. Her jewelry was minimal, small gold studs, nothing else. She had left the sapphire ring at the hotel. Her mother had given it to her before she passed, and Serena had learned long ago not to bring her mother's things into rooms that didn't deserve them. The Hargrove Foundation Gala was held every year at the Astor Place Pavilion on the Upper East Side, a venue that had been in the Hargrove family for 3 generations, renovated twice, featured in 4 architecture magazines, and never once mentioned in any of those features was that the renovation loans, both of them, had been secured through a private investment vehicle managed by Meridian Capital, specifically by Serena's predecessor, and for the past 2 years, specifically by Serena. She knew every beam in this building. She had approved the contractor. None of the Hargroves knew that. She had been invited tonight as a courtesy, a standard gesture extended to mid-level institutional partners. The invitation had been sent to the firm's general inbox. Serena had intercepted it herself, RSVP'd under her name, and driven 4 hours because she had made a decision about the Hargrove account, and she wanted, just once, to look at the thing clearly before she ended it. That was the only reason she came. The pavilion was exactly what she expected. Enormous floral arrangements in cream and gold, a string quartet playing something that sounded like Vivaldi but wasn't. Wait, staff moving in choreographed silence with trays of things on crackers. The Hargroves had that particular talent for expensive rooms that feel cold, where everything costs something but nothing feels like it was chosen with love. Serena collected a glass of sparkling water from a passing tray and found a quiet corner near the east wall where she could watch the room. The Hargroves arrived at 8:15, which was fashionably late by exactly the right amount. There were 3 of them tonight: Clifton Hargrove, patriarch and founder of Hargrove Development, who moved through rooms like he had built them all personally. His daughter-in-law, Renata Hargrove, in a cream gown that probably cost more than Serena's first car, and Clifton's son, Drew Hargrove, who had the particular look of a man who had been told he was exceptional so many times that he no longer questioned it. Serena watched them work the room. They were good at this part. She'd give them that. She had almost made it through the first hour without incident. She was near the bar, listening to a board member from a hospital foundation talk about a mentorship program, when she felt someone tap her shoulder with one finger, the kind of tap that has impatience built into it. She turned. Renata Hargrove was standing 18 inches from her. Up close, the cream gown was even more expensive looking. Renata had the kind of blondness that required maintenance, and she was wearing it the way some people wear armor. "I'm sorry," Renata said, and her voice had the specific cadence of someone who was not sorry at all. "Are you with catering?" Serena looked at her. "No," she said. Renata's eyes moved down Serena's dress and back up again. "This section is reserved for foundation board members and major donors. There's a general reception in the East Atrium." She paused. "You may have wandered in." The hospital board member had gone very still beside Serena. "I didn't wander in," Serena said. "I was invited." Renata's smile was the kind that didn't reach anything. "I'm sure you were. But if you could just find your coordinator, they can direct you to the right area." Serena set her water glass down on the high-top table next to her. carefully. "I don't have a coordinator. I have an invitation." She reached into her clutch and held out the card. White stock, gold embossing, the Hargrove Foundation seal in the upper left corner. Renata did not take it. "Drew." She turned her head slightly and raised her voice just enough to carry. "Drew, can you come here a moment?" Drew Hargrove detached himself from a conversation 30 feet away and came over with the practiced ease of a man who has handled scenes before. He looked at Serena with something that might have been polite interest, if there had been any genuine curiosity behind it. "What's the issue?" "This woman seems to have been given incorrect information about the event," Renata said. Drew looked at Serena. "This is a private foundation gala, invitation only." "I know," Serena said. "I have one." She held it out again. Drew took it this time, looked at it, and handed it back. "These do sometimes get forwarded around." He said it pleasantly, which was somehow worse. "The general events coordinator can help you with a ticket for the public reception. It's actually quite lovely. They have live music." "I can hear the music from where I'm standing," Serena said. Something moved across Drew's face. Not quite annoyance. More like the particular irritation of a man who is accustomed to resistance simply dissolving when he maintains his tone. "I think there's been a miscommunication," he said. "There hasn't," Serena said. Renata put her hand on Drew's arm. "I'll have Robert handle it." She looked at Serena with a smile that was finished now, done performing politeness. "You really shouldn't be in this section. I'm going to have to ask you to move." "I'm not going to move," Serena said. The quiet that followed was the kind that gets remembered. Renata's hand tightened on Drew's arm. Drew looked around the room, not to see who was watching, but in the way of a man scanning for someone whose job it is to handle this. He found Robert, the head of events security, with his eyes, and made the smallest possible gesture. Robert was across the room in 40 seconds. He was a large man, professionally pleasant in the way that private event security always is, and he came to stand just close enough to make the shape of the conversation clear without saying anything yet. "Ma'am," he said, "can I help you find somewhere?" "I'm fine where I am," Serena said. "The families asked that this section be kept to foundation." "I know what the family asked," Serena said. Her voice was even. It had been even this entire time. That was the thing about Serena Mack. She did not raise her voice in rooms where people were waiting for her to raise her voice. She had learned that at 23 from a woman named Dr. 23, from a woman named Dr. Patricia O.C., who had told her, "The moment you get loud, you hand them the story." Renata leaned in, not close enough to touch, but close enough that it was meant to feel like pressure. "I don't know what you were told or who gave you that card, but you are embarrassing yourself, and I will not have someone embarrass this family at our event." Serena looked at her for a moment. Then she said, quietly enough that only the three of them and the hospital board member and 2 people standing within 10 feet could hear, "I'm not embarrassing anyone." "Robert," Drew said. Robert put his hand on Serena's elbow. Not roughly. He was professional, but with the clear intention of direction, of moving her. And then Renata, who perhaps felt that the moment required something definitive, put both hands on Serena's shoulders and pushed. It wasn't violent. It was the kind of push that is designed to look like a redirect, like a gesture, like nothing, but it wasn't nothing. Serena's heel caught the edge of the marble runner and she stumbled back a step, and her clutch hit the floor, and the room heard it. The room heard everything now. The string quartet had reached a natural pause. Every person in a 12-foot radius was watching. Serena straightened. She bent down and picked up her clutch. She took a breath that was slow and deliberate and entirely unrushed. And then she looked at Renata Hargrove with an expression that would later be described by 4 separate witnesses as the most unsettling thing they had ever seen at a social event. Because it wasn't anger. It wasn't humiliation. There was something closer to the way a person looks when they already know how a story ends. "Thank you," Serena said. "That's all I needed." She walked out through the main entrance. A reporter from the city section who had been covering the gala for a lifestyle piece held the door open for her without quite knowing why. Outside, in the November air, Serena sat down on the steps of the pavilion and called her attorney. "It happened," she said. "You okay?" "Fine. Tell me they got it." There was a pause. Then both cameras, interior and the press pool on the steps. Renata is very clearly the aggressor. Drew's gesture to security is also visible. Serena exhaled. She had not planted the cameras. She had simply known they would be there. The Hargroves always invited press to the gala, and press always set up early. She had positioned herself accordingly. She had known when she came tonight that the Hargroves would not be able to help themselves. She had read 4 years of their behavior, and she had understood, precisely, what kind of people they were. The kind who look at a woman like her and see staff. The kind who do not check before they push. She had just needed it on record. She was back at her hotel by 10. She ordered room service, a club sandwich, which she had been thinking about since the second hour of the drive, and opened her laptop and sent 3 emails, one to the Meridian Capital Executive Committee, one to her attorney, one to the Hargrove Foundation's board chair, a woman named Dr. Meredith Calloway, whom Serena had met twice at industry conferences and who had, both times, struck her as someone who had no idea what she was governing. The email to Dr. Calloway was brief. It contained a link to a shared file. Inside the file were 4 things: the 2 investment agreements between Meridian Capital and the Hargrove Development Group, the renewal paperwork that had been sitting on Serena's desk for 6 weeks, unsigned, a summary of the renovation loans and their current status, and a single line of text at the bottom that read, "Meridian Capital will not be renewing the partnership at this time. Further correspondence should be directed to our legal team." She closed the laptop at 11:15 and finished her sandwich. By 7 the next morning, the video was everywhere. It was not the full clip. The full clip was 40 seconds long and had been passed to 2 journalists by a source Serena genuinely did not know, which meant someone else at that party had also been done with the Hargroves. The clip that circulated most was 18 seconds. Renata's hands on Serena's shoulders, the stumble, the dropped clutch, and then Serena's face as she straightened, composed, completely, unnervingly composed. The comments were immediate, and they were not kind to Renata Hargrove. By 9 a.m., Hargrove Development stock had dropped 4% on the opening bell. By 11, a second outlet had confirmed that the woman in the navy dress was Serena Mack, portfolio director at Meridian Capital, and that Meridian Capital held the primary investment position on both of the Hargrove's recent development projects. By noon, Hargrove Development's publicist had released a statement describing the incident as a misunderstanding and expressing that the family was deeply committed to inclusion. The statement had been written quickly, and it showed. By 2 o'clock, the statement had been ratioed 7,000 times. Drew Hargrove's office called Meridian Capital at 3:15. Serena was in a meeting. They called again at 4. She was still in a meeting. They sent an email at 4:45 that was very long and contained the phrase, "We value our partnership," 6 times. Serena read it on her phone in the elevator. She forwarded it to her attorney and put her phone back in her pocket. The Hargrove Foundation's annual gala was no longer on the Astor Place Pavilion's events calendar by the end of the week. The pavilion's director, a quiet man named Oliver Brandt, who had been managing the venue for 11 years, had simply declined to renew the booking. He had not explained why in the letter. He did not need to. Renata Hargrove gave one interview to a sympathetic outlet that had been given access in exchange for what was clearly supposed to be a rehabilitation piece. She used the word misread 4 times. She said she had thought Serena was confused about the section. She said she hoped they could move forward. The article was published on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, the outlet had quietly updated the piece to add a statement from Serena's attorney, which read, "Ms. Mack has no interest in further comment. The matter has been addressed." Serena went back to work. She had a new partnership to finalize with a development group out of Atlanta, a woman named Sandra Okafor, who had been building mixed-income housing in the Southeast for 15 years and who had called Serena 6 months ago on a referral and impressed her inside of 40 minutes. That partnership was more interesting to her than anything the Hargroves had ever brought to the table. She did not watch the coverage. She did not read the comments. She knew what was in them because Penny texted her screenshots with increasing frequency and the word justice in all capitals, but Serena herself did not need to see it unfold in real time. She had seen how it would go when she was still standing in that pavilion, looking at Renata's face after the push. She had already done the math. The sapphire ring was on her right hand now. She had put it on the morning she drove back, in the parking garage of the hotel, before she started the car. It sat where it always sat, quiet and without announcement, catching light in the way of small things that had been carried a long time. Her mother would have told her not to go. Her mother also would have understood exactly why she did. There is something particular about the kind of power that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't carry a placard. It doesn't wear the right dress. It walks into a room and absorbs what the room shows it, and then it goes home and makes decisions based on what it saw. Renata Hargrove had pushed a woman she believed was beneath her. She had done it in front of cameras, in front of witnesses, in a building that woman's firm had financed, at an event whose future depended on partnerships her firm controlled. She had done it because nothing in her life had ever made her pause before the push. That was the Hargrove way. It always had been. And now it wasn't anymore. I keep thinking about the moment Serena picked up her clutch off that marble floor. She didn't look around to see who was watching. She didn't say anything sharp or memorable. She just picked it up, took a breath, and walked out, and that image has stayed with me longer than anything else in this story. Because that's the moment everything actually happened. Not the push. Not the video going viral. Not the stock dropping 4% at the open bell. The moment Serena decided to keep her composure while the room waited for her to lose it, that was where the real story lived. I think about what it takes to build that kind of stillness in a person. It doesn't come from nowhere. Serena had spent years doing the unglamorous, invisible work, reading contracts at midnight, approving contractors nobody photographed, building a track record that never once asked for a room's attention. That's not easy. That's the kind of discipline that most people abandon when the results don't show up on a timeline they can live with. She stayed anyway. She stayed because she understood something that the Hargroves never did, that real strength isn't loud. It compounds quietly, in the background, until the moment it can't be ignored anymore. What Renata and Drew had was position. What Serena had was knowledge of the numbers, of the agreements, of exactly how much of their empire ran through her hands without their awareness. Intelligence isn't just what you know. It's knowing when not to show what you know. Serena had walked into that pavilion understanding she held every card. She could have announced it. She chose not to. She let the Hargroves tell her exactly who they were instead, and she recorded it. Not with a hidden device, but simply by showing up in a room full of cameras and allowing them to behave naturally. That's a kind of wisdom that can't be bought, and it can't be faked. The part of this story I find hardest to sit with is the part nobody talks about. Serena drove 4 hours alone. She didn't bring backup. She didn't bring a publicist or a friend or anyone who could have held her hand through it. She walked into a room where she knew she would be underestimated, likely disrespected, possibly humiliated, and she walked in anyway because she had made a decision and she was going to see it through. That's not bravado. That's something quieter and harder than bravado. That's the willingness to absorb difficulty without flinching, to keep moving through the uncomfortable thing, because the thing on the other side of it matters. Most people talk themselves out of that walk. They find a reason to send an email instead. Serena got in the car. And I think that's what stays with me most. Not the karma, not the numbers, not the moment Renata's publicist released a statement nobody believed. It's the drive. 4 hours, black coffee, no one riding shotgun. Just a woman who knew what she was worth, going somewhere to make sure the record reflected it. You can't manufacture that kind of backbone. You build it, slowly, one decision at a time, in rooms where no one is watching and no one will applaud. Serena had been building it for years. The Hargroves just happened to be standing there when it was finished.